Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now, here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. Past guests include Ryan Dice, Joe Polish, and Jason Fladlin. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 29 years. So if you're a company that has software, a product, or a design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. And you could schedule a call with my team at speaktolarry.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You could also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have with me here today Jordan Ross. Jordan is the founder and CEO of the 8-Figure Agency. They currently work with about 120 agencies to help them grow and scale their businesses, and have helped them to add over $100 million in annual recurring revenue. And since its inception, the 8-Figure Agency has actually worked with nearly 700 different agencies. Before founding 8-Figure Agency, Jordan worked for Amazon, where he ran a division of 800 people. I'm happy to welcome here today Jordan Ross. Welcome, Jordan.
Hey, Rich. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a bit about your entrepreneurial journey and how you kind of got started on this path.
Yeah, so I am a byproduct of the Shark Tank era, so I definitely think there was some unconscious influence from Shark Tank coming out in 2008. I was going to high school at that point. And, I went to college with the intention, knowing I want to be an entrepreneur. I went to Ohio State, was at a presentation my sophomore year of college, unclear what I wanted to take my entrepreneurial path to, and I saw a presentation for Amazon. And they said, you could come work at our warehouse. You'll have a team of 100 right out of school. I was like, oh my goodness. If I need to become an entrepreneur, I need to learn how to manage and run a team and run operations. That's a great skill set. So I completely put all my focus into getting a job at Amazon after college. This is 2013, 14 timeline. Went to work at Amazon, worked there 4 years, managed over 2,500 people. At my peak, I was managing an org chart of over 800 employees. And when I was there, I learned I love helping people, and I'm great at it too. And I stumbled upon the concept of coaching through a podcast called the One Thing Podcast by Jeff Woods, where Jeff was working with this entrepreneur, Ryan Daniel Moran, and he was guiding this entrepreneur on exactly what to do. It was like, holy mackerel, I want to do that thing. And coaching eventually led me down the road to consulting. And I started consulting on the side while at Amazon. I was like taking calls from my car in between on my lunch break. And I was bringing the Amazon blueprint to entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs typically are similar to me, like high energy, personable, and they could go close deals and generate business. But everything else is pretty hard. And that's where the Amazon model comes in. And, flash forward, my first client ever was a digital marketing agency. To date, we've worked with over 700 digital marketing agencies. We have over 120 active clients. And it's just really compounded by helping people optimize their business by talent, process, and operations. It's been the bulk of success.
So you actually started out as an entrepreneur, where you're working within Amazon, kind of doing what an entrepreneur would do, but within the organization, like helping to streamline processes and leading people to do their best, I guess.
100%. 100%. I was an operations manager, so I was just an entrepreneur in spirit. I was learning, I was consuming. And I think one of the biggest pitfalls of really young Gen Z entrepreneurs right now is they just want to go straight to the pylon, straight to I want to run a business. It's really hard to run a business if you don't know anything.
$700 million exit.
Exactly. And for me, I spent 4 years at Amazon. When I left, it took me 18 months. I think it was 18. Could be wrong. It took me like 18 or 24 months to go from 0 to 2 million annualized recurring revenue business. because once I figured out business development, I already know how to do everything else. So I was studying at Amazon. Amazon was my MBA and my doctorate, as I like to say.
Awesome. And so like what are some of the things that really helped you to create annual recurring revenue for yourself and for your clients? Like what are some of the things that you think really contributed toward that type of sustainable business?
Yeah. And we could address both. Let's just start with my clients first. So for my clients, my company has helped add over $100 million in annual recurring revenue for our clients, benchmarked against when they came in and versus, where they ended up going. And for business in general, there's really one guiding principle and philosophy that I believe guides all, strategy for business. And that's the theory of constraints, right? The theory of constraints states that we will only be able to go as fast or grow as fast as the biggest constraint in our business. So when you look at that, there's a lot of content and a lot of knowledge about lead generation and sales on the marketplace. And there's not a lot of good content on everything else. Fulfillment, talent, capacity, lifetime value, right? How do I scale this up and maintain my standards? And for me, the reason we've been able to scale with our clients, the biggest philosophy is let's build a really good operation. Once you have a dialed in process of how you can do the same thing repeatably, you can build a really good team around that because you could source, onboard, hire, and train talent well, which means you could start to manage talent. My definition of management is the process of retaining and developing your talent. So you're keeping your talent and then they're getting better, which allows you to then focus on continuous improvement and making your service better, right? Lifetime value is just a correlation of solving a core problem and then delivering a great service continuously, whether it's a service or product that truly solves a problem or meets a specific need of your end user. And if you could really focus on building something elite there, then that trickles down to culture. Culture, by my definition, is what your people say and do when you're not around. And culture on an enterprise value or an enterprise level is truly what, creates success. It's what your people say and do when no one's looking. It's the science of success organizationally. So for me, that's the philosophy of our clients. Let's look at your company. Where's the bottleneck or the constraint operationally, talent, fulfillment, lifetime value? Let's find it. Let's build a process and system that's scalable and repeatable. And let's do it again and again. And let's make sure you can do that autonomously without needing us. And that's how we've led to enterprise value for our clients, which in of itself has led to the growth of our own recurring revenue because we've really focused in on that one thing.
Yeah. And so like on the subject of like how agencies grow, I mean, it's always been kind of fascinating to me. This is in my mind the big constraint with agencies. Like I've worked with quite a number of marketing agencies, and so I believe that often you have someone who's talented at doing whatever it is they do, whether it's pay-per-click management or social media management, and they they get some really outstanding results for clients, which lead to some referrals, which lead to more clients, which lead to too many clients for them to handle, and so then they decide they're going to scale. And then what ends up happening often in my experience is they hire some additional people to manage those accounts. And then the original thing that made them successful, their talent, gets watered down. And the new clients don't really get that same experience that the original clients did, let's say. And so to me, that's always occurred as the challenge in scaling an agency, is how to maintain that same quality as you grow, and stop trading your time for money. So, I mean, I guess tell me about that part of it and how you've seen and how you've helped agencies to overcome that type of difficulty.
And I think for clients, right, if you're doing less than $2 million in annual revenue, I would say that's your primary problem set that you're solving for. Like that is the primary constraint that I see. If you're doing less than 2 million, and to hyperfixate like less than $1 million, that is the problem. If you're doing less than $1 million, 100%. And the way we've come to solve this, it's a two-part process. The first thing is I call it stringing success, right? So if you're a founder and you're an A+ player with a team of whether it's A- or B or worse, the first thing you need to do is get yourself time, right? So when we do this, and I give the analogy, if I put one string in front of you, that string's really weak. But if I put like 100 strings and they're all together, coiled together, like that's not breaking. We need to start doing that with you. So what's the string in this analogy? It's your time. So what are the things that you're doing that are administrative in nature, that are easy, that you can build an SOP for, a standard operating procedure, something that you don't even need to train someone to do, that if they have this document or process, they can follow and execute it. That's what a virtual assistant or an assistant or an administrative role will do for you. Let's track your time. Let's get all that stuff off your plate. Typically, we find our founders can get 2 to 6 hours off their plate immediately because we're not conscious that we're doing things that, oh, this one activity is probably worth $5, $10, $15 an hour, but my time as a founder could be worth $500 an hour, right? So we make that clear and we define that. And then once we do that, now I have 2 to 6 hours of my time. Let's make sure we put that to work on the business, not in the business. And that's where our models and methodologies come in. So if we define the operation, right, for this person, we create a really clear workflow. What's the first step of when a client comes in, when you close a deal, all the way to maintaining them 12, 24, 36 months. Let's make expectations super clear for our team, responsibilities, goals, and KPIs. Let's make project management visible. A lot of times founders less than 2 million are chasing their team. They're trying to figure out if they did everything. Let's make visibility. So we have end-of-day reporting. So you could see everyone did the tasks they need to do. If it's data, we can see where our clients are trending. And then from that, we could start to naturally create more ownership for our team, because if they're reporting out daily, the standard raises. And when we do that, now we could start to forecast, because we got the foundation. So we start to forecast, okay, if your business looks like this, you have all these different roles. Let's define what are the roles you're in, or the roles we need to get off your plate. Typically, the easier role is project management. Like we have a resource that we refer clients to that we could probably help you get a really good project manager for like $3 to $4K a month, and they're exceptional. Account management, back-end stuff for agencies like media buyers. Like we have resources for all these roles that don't have to be client facing. Let's get the things that are easier to delegate off your plate. And then the last function, especially in an agency, it's the strategist. I call them the rainmaker. Like as founders, we can go in and do things that no one else can do. That's the last role we get off your plate. But by getting the administrative things off your plate, the project management roles off your plate, and all these other things that are easier and more standard in the marketplace, by the time we get to the strategist, our business correlatively should have grown 30, 40, 50, 60K per month in recurring revenue. And now we have the profit to afford an A player, which is, they are worth every dollar of it, by the way. And at that part, we're now bringing on a senior level person. We're probably poaching them from another agency, but we're going to give them a lot more upside so they actually work for us. And that's where I say 1 to 2 million, because you usually have the budget to afford a person. And that's the solution. That's how we do it. So in recap, build a really good operation, identify how to source really good talent, even if it's admin or project management, source, hire, onboard, train, maintain, develop, retain. And it works every single time.
Hire A players. I mean, it's like I've heard Ryan Dice say a number of times that whoever can spend the most to get a customer wins.
Yep.
And so similarly, it's like if you could set up your system so that you could spend the most to bring on the right talent, you could win, because you have you're then able to get some of the best results. And I guess if you and also have you're able to have a team that can support those people in doing what they do best.
Yeah, I completely like that. That was my whole philosophy. My profit when I was doing $1 million annually versus 2 was the same. It's the same net profit. My gross margins and net margins decreased a lot. But my whole philosophy was, if I fully remove myself from my operation, because I hire a talent and I only hire people that have already been a COO in an 8-figure company, I'm going to be able to I'm not going to be pulled into the operation, because they'll be able to be self-sufficient and they'll deliver a great experience. And that's what I've done. And that's what I focus the majority of my time on: podcasts and marketing and funnel and sales. And, I do some training internally because I built this whole philosophy. But my team's exceptional. My least accomplished consultant is a COO that left a $20 million business. So I think agencies can do the same thing. They just have to get to that point of like, 1 to 2 million to make that conscious choice. I'm going to intentionally water down my margins a little bit, but it's going to be worth it because I'm not going to be getting pulled into the operation, and I can now grow this 3, 4, 5x as a result. So it's worth it. It's worth the trade-off.
Right. You mentioned that 1 to 2 million. I think there's a big ditch there. I guess call it a ditch, a valley, a rift. But there's a big hump there that so many businesses, and I guess agencies are no different, have to overcome. In that growing from 1 to 2 million maybe is as difficult as going from 2 to 10 million. It's kind of getting past that $2 million mark that really traps a lot of entrepreneurs. I mean, what do you think about that as it relates to what you do?
I would agree. I said going from 1 to 2 million was so much easier than going to 1 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really do believe the game of entrepreneurship starts when you're doing like like 85 to 100K per month. Like that's when the game just begins,
Mm-hmm.
because the strategy and the fun of it all when you're not stressed. It's like real life fantasy sports. Like people love fantasy football, basketball. That's what business is. Like you're building your dream team. And when you truly do that the right way, there's a reason clients we see go, it's so much easier to take a client from 2 million to 4 million than is from like 1 to 2 or like 0 to 1.
Right. Yep. Got it. And just on that note too, talking about your philosophy, tell me about the one thing philosophy.
Yeah. So the one thing comes from Gary Keller. Gary Keller is the founder of Keller Williams. And if you don't know them, they're the largest real estate company in North America. I think they were founded in like the 70s or 80s, which is pretty significant if you think in that time frame. They became the largest real estate company in an industry that's been around forever. Gary identified something called Pareto's Principle, which I believe most of us have learned in high school. Pareto's Principle states that 20% of our effort leads to 80% of our results, or 20% of something can lead to 80% of the other, right?
Right.
And
we spend 80% of our effort on 20% of our results often.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you see this in extremes, like the 1% hold 99% of the wealth. Right. So you see this principle continuously coming up. So in our business, going back to theory of constraints, right? What's the one thing I can do? And this is like the exact like terminology they use. What's the one thing I can do? Hence that by doing so will make hitting my target that I want to hit easier, and everything else completely unnecessary. Because usually when it comes to growing a business, there's 1 to 5 variables that we got to do that's actually going to allow us to double. Usually it's like 1 to 3. It's like not that many. And one of the things we were talking about before we clicked record is that is my sole philosophy. Every time I get pulled off because I have a shiny object syndrome, I just get reminded of that principle. It really is, if you're doing 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, 2 million, does not matter the number. Just do the one thing, one offer, one service, one industry till you really max that out. Funnel, how many appointments are you selling per month? Or if you're selling a product, how many impressions and eyeballs are you getting on that product per month? Conversion, what's your conversion rate, whether it's a sale or a landing page? Lifetime value, how do you those are 3 things: leads, sales, lifetime value. Those are the 3 variables. And if you truly put all of your attention, there's usually like 20 to 50 things you can do just to increase one of those 3 variables. That's it. I think in entrepreneurship, especially the nature of who entrepreneurs typically are, it's so easy to get distracted. I've done it. I know the principle and I still get distracted, right? So I think a lot of the success that we find with our clients, it's, hey, we're going to take that one thing methodology off your plate. We're just going to build the strategy for you. Because your bottleneck in your business is lifetime value or your operation or capacity or your ability to focus on growth, right? It's usually, doesn't matter if we're doing this with a nine-figure company or 7-figure company. It's usually the same, or even a 6-figure company for that matter.
Yeah. And as it relates to kind of creating value, so you've recently been doing consulting for equity, and so how does that fit into your business and how you operate?
It's so new, and it came up, Rich, because I was looking at the numbers. I looked at this year. I was like, oh my goodness, we have generated over $100 million in recurring revenue for our clients. Like when I looked at that, I remember I was like, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, oh my God, it's a retainer model. We have a retainer that's a miniature fraction of that number, right? And what I realized was a lot of times business, it's kind of like when Neo in the Matrix looks at the spoon, right? He was trying to make the spoon bend, but it took him looking at it from a different perspective that made that spoon bend all the way back. And I think a lot of success is how you frame and look at your scenario. And I was looking at building a consulting practice when I think a lot of my success moving forward, I believe, we'll find out, come back to me in a year or two and I'll tell you, is we have a really good formula for growing a specific type of industry. And I really believe it works for all businesses because we've had like 30 different industries that we've worked with and it's been successful for all of them. For me, it's actually about building out a holding company. Now, I got introduced through a partner who were just starting to make proposals on this. It's called CFE. I literally learned this a week ago, Consulting for Equity, right? Some people don't want to hire a consultant. Some people are saying, hey, my business has an enterprise value of, let's call it $2 million. And I'm really looking for a partner that's going to I want to sell, or I want to just fully exit, or I just want to focus on this one thing. It could be a series of different reasons. I want my business to be valued at $5 million. And people usually want partners. People are usually happy to give up, whether it's a dividend or like a stake in the game. So consulting for equity is a methodology where, hey, your business is valued at $2 million right now. You will keep your current value and your compensation. What we'll do is we'll create an agreement where anything that we create with you from the $2 to $5 million range, right? Whether it's enterprise value or recurring revenue, we'll do some form of a split on that, whether it's we are able to get a dividend on the net new revenue or profit, or the net new returns, or when you sell. And then when we sell this business, if you want to sell, because you don't have to, if the business was valued at $2 million, now it's valued at $5 million and we sell for $5 million, we created a delta of $3 million in enterprise value. We will get some form of cut of that $3 million. We won't touch the two. We're only going to touch what the net new value. And for me, it's a creative way to start building a portfolio, right? Because a lot of people think that you have to take on debt, which was my apprehension. I want to keep the one thing, right? Going back to my methodology. If I start to figure out debt and start to figure out acquisition, it changes my model and builds in a level of complexity that will actually deter me from doubling again. At least that's what I was been telling myself. But when I met my partner, Matt, he was like, hey, well, you could just keep doing the same exact thing you're doing. We just need to structure your agreement with your clients differently. And when you just change that one thing, that's the one thing that unlocks a whole new level of growth. So that's really fresh. Like we're talking 1 to 2 weeks of me doing this. So we have three different collaborators and partners that they already have portfolios, and they now want to leverage us to manage and run their portfolios for them. So it's kind of like a sweat equity deal right now for us. It's just I never thought of it. It's really unique. And that's what we're trying to do
and it makes a ton of sense. It requires no upfront investment on their part. They like the fact that you have skin in the game. And I think maybe the only thing that needs to happen on your end is just to finance your way toward kind of the first payout.
And that's exactly it. We front the cost of the talent, the systems, implement all that. So the risk is on us, not on you. And that's why a lot of people just want partners. Like entrepreneurship's a lonely thing. And then like I'm bashing my head against the wall. Could someone just help me not? And people are willing to pay for that, of course.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, that's exciting. And it just seems to fit because you help people to grow their businesses. You help them to scale through processes, through recruiting strategies, retention strategies, cultural strategies. And it just makes sense to have a kind of piece of the action. And I think I definitely want to have a further conversation with you down the road to see how it all goes.
Yeah. And, look, you're catching me 7 days when the energy's high. It's always harder. I think every entrepreneur who's worth their weight knows that what we make it out to be, it's always 10 to 20x harder than when we actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
The whole philosophy of this experience with me, we're not really changing what we're doing. We're just changing the structure of the agreement of how we're doing it. We'll see what happens. But if you're curious, and you're listening, you could ping me when you hear this, because when you're hearing this, it'll probably be like 2 or 3 months later. Hey, how'd that thing go? Because I want to do that as an entrepreneur. I want equity in these businesses I'm helping.
Exactly. And on that note, if people want to learn more about you, again, contact with you, or just want to check in with you to see how the Consulting for Equity is doing, how do they go about doing so?
Yeah, well, first, I also have a podcast. It's called How to Scale an Agency. If you're not running a digital marketing agency, we have clients in all different industries. I just believe, I had to build a niche to build a brand. And without a brand, I wouldn't have had a business. So that's the first place. If you are on Twitter or YouTube and you want to check me out, my best platform probably is Twitter, but my best platform in a year will probably be YouTube. It's Jordan_Ross_8F, both of those platforms. And if you want to get in contact, or whether it's you need help, you want to explore collabs, or you have a bottleneck or constraint in your business, go to my website, 8figureagency.co. There's more information there. If you're like, I just want to talk to you right now, go to 8figureagency.co/call. We could help. We got plenty of guarantees in our offer. I think the cool thing that we didn't talk about is when I was learning about building a guaranteed offer, and we have guaranteed satisfaction, your money back. We've never had a client that's worked with us for more than a month that's asked for money back, and we've worked with over 700 now. So that's kind of like I really put my money where my mouth is, like, this will work or it's free. And I think that's the thing I'm most proud of when I'm talking to people about my business. Like, it's all about the high quality of standard. That's the Amazon way.
Right. And you're not worried about it being free because you know it's going to work.
That's the whole thing. It's like, let's make this so stinking easy for us to do this thing. Let's remove any ambiguities or barriers. Let's just do it. Let's grow your company. That's the whole word.
Awesome. Well, again, Jordan, thank you so much for taking the time to be on this podcast. And I guess I'm looking forward to checking out how to scale an agency. I think there are some lessons outside of the agency world, even in the world of my own law firm, that I could learn from and can help us to grow and scale.
Yeah, we have worked with lawyers, so like I try to keep those lessons agnostic, because we picked this niche because to get to multi 7 figures, a niche makes sense. And then when you max out your total addressable market, then it makes sense to go to a different space. So I got 2 co-hosts there. My podcast release on Mondays and Thursdays, if you just want to hang out with me virtually in your car, wherever you consume. Awesome. So thanks.
Okay, great. Well, again, thanks so much, Jordan, for being on the show.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.